I see this guy on with Brandy Cruz all the time. I thought, let's get Travis Couture on. Our state rep there on the 35th. There you are. Look better on our show than you do on Brandy's show.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Yes. By the way, I've been like a dog on a bone about this ridiculous Keeping Families Together Act, which you have given a new name. What's the bill that you would, and this is a terrible name, and it's awful, but it makes the point. Travis, you would rather call it the what?
The dead baby bill. Yeah, we call it the dead baby bill. And it's not just me. It's not just Republicans. Actually, judges call it that. Social workers call it that. Foster families call it that. Law enforcement calls it that. So that was kind of like an organic name that has just kind of spread. And that's what people who oppose the Keeping Families Together Act know the bill as. Because honestly, we are just having like record amounts of child deaths in our state. And just to kind of highlight what we're facing right now, between Q1 of 2024 and Q1 of 2025, so the quarter we're in, we just had a 200% increase in critical incidents, and that's child fatalities and near fatalities, like overdoses of children, and most of it because of hard drugs. So the state is just leaving them in these homes to die. And, they passed the bill because they thought that, there's this equity problem where we were disproportionately removing minority children from minority parents. But now they've created this catch-22 where disproportionately minority children are dying as a result of the drug exposure in the home. And I mean, we're as crazy as the state is saying, oh, we'll keep the child in that drug fueled home where the parent is abusing fentanyl. We'll just give them a lockbox and hopefully they remember to put their fentanyl in the lockbox.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely nuts.
Travis, anytime anybody uses disproportionate as an argument, they should just stop talking. Right. Because it's disproportionate has absolutely nothing to do with the actions of the individual. Statistically, a higher percentage, it doesn't mean that the disproportionate, well, then there must be some sort of bias, or there's got to be some sort of prejudice, so they come up with this idea and that, it's disproportionately affecting this portion of society, so therefore we're going to come up with this ridiculous law, and we're going to give it a ridiculous name, and we're going to subject these kids to eventual neglect and torture and death, as you have seen that the numbers go up. And that what they're trying to do is they wanted to stop the number of kids in foster care. So the way they wanted to get that number down is, well, we'll just get the kids back in with the family, put the babies back in with the families. Well, this family is in no shape to be able to care for a child who needs the attention of a sober mother and father, basically 24 hours a day. So the numbers keep going up. I forget the gal the Democrat that pushed this thing through. We've reached out to her numerous times. We haven't heard her. She won't come on. But there is enough of a groundswell, I would hope, Travis, that this thing will eventually get some rational minds wrapped around it and change this thing. Are you making any progress?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've been pushing this every year since I've been elected. So my first session was in 2023. And, it's kind of morphed over time. The bill has gotten actually better. But for the first time this last session, I had Democrat co-sponsors, a handful of them, some reasonable Democrats willing to look at the data and the numbers and say, yeah, that's totally unacceptable. And after this session, I got even more interested in working with me and other Republicans on this issue. And then there's kind of a story of two Democrats in Olympia. Some of them are, liberal, but a little bit more reasonable and willing to look at the data and make rational decisions. And then there's a host of Democrats in Olympia who are radical socialists who will not listen to anything, and they believe that they're always right, and including the prime sponsor of the Keeping Families Together Act is still defending it to this day, despite all of the numbers and the evidence of the extreme amounts of child deaths. I mean, just think about it. I like to say, like, how many kids have to die? At the rate we're at in the first quarter of this year, we will have well over 100 child deaths in this state, totally needless. It was all built by the state just forcing these kids back into the arms of parents who can't even honestly care for themselves, let alone a child. And just these radical policies. And I'm sure you probably saw, John, that the state of Washington and the SURSAT committee is already trying to, through the Department of Health, trying to become its own drug dealer and sell fentanyl and other drugs to people who are already addicted. And you've seen Department of Health put out probably TV commercials and radio ads about, hey, if you're going to use fentanyl, do it with a buddy.
Yeah.
This kind of stuff is nuts. I mean, we're like the one state in the nation who is going the opposite way on fentanyl. The other states are starting to recover a little bit. But we have record amounts of deaths. And I like to liken it like this, like in the last numbers that we had, over 3,600 drug-related deaths in Washington. That's like having a 9/11 style event every single year playing out on our streets, and the human suffering and misery that goes along with it. And we're just not practicing any human compassion at all. We're literally handing them the tools of their demise and the drugs potentially to do it as well, the paraphernalia and the government-run heroin dens, essentially a place where they can do it at. And we just step over these people as a society, and it's just getting to be too much.
Well, there was a woman, I forget what organization she was with, and she was testifying there in Seattle. And she said, who are we to judge? If this person wants to do drugs, then we should make it as safe for them as possible. And it's really about their autonomy, and we can't judge if they want to do drugs. That's not where we're allowed to be involved in their life. Putting that moronic argument aside, just going back to the thing you just mentioned. So this is the state of Washington, which is apparently, the news just broke that we're even more broke than we thought, right? That the state of Washington would provide drugs that we know are clean. And if you want them, you can sign up for them. We will either deliver them to you, or you can come get them, or you would go to a location and we would give you the drugs that you need so you're not taking risky fentanyl. That's basically it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they came up with a few different recommendations. All of them are terrible. At least 2 of the 4 recommendations are absolutely atrocious. Basically turning the state into its own drug dealer. They want to follow the Canadian model, and look how well that's worked out. Things like we've already failed and tried in Vancouver and other places. And, it's just going to create this big black market, and it's going to be terrible. And they even admit in the SURSAT committee that it's actually not going to stop any, drug abuse. No. And so they never once question. And just to your point about kind of those statements and those thoughts, I mean, I kind of liken that to like, maybe you want to kill yourself with a gun, so let's make sure you have a clean gun with the serial number. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, we're literally watching people die a slow motion death in our streets and at record levels. And in the last session, there was like absolutely nothing done about it. And, if these kind of recommendations fly through, I mean, we see the stuff that happens in our street, but as we've been talking about, there's a lot of nefarious things happening behind closed doors that we don't see in our homes with babies and toddlers. Most of those child deaths are 0 to 3 years old. Right. Babies and toddlers, they deserve a second chance. They're not just a black line in a fatality report. They're not a government statistic. They're a child. They deserve to have a second chance at life. And if as a legislator or a bureaucrat in Olympia, you don't wake up every day thinking about that. I mean, we make policy decisions all the time that, maybe piss somebody off or maybe don't make somebody mad, taxes, whatever. But when your policy decisions have the weight of a human life behind them, like it's incumbent upon us to do a lot better than what we're doing. And maybe we don't come up with the perfect solution, but like, hell, can we just try to make some progress going in the right direction? These are babies dying needlessly for no reason other than some radical ideology and some dogma of some radical Democrats and progressives. It's got to stop.
We're talking with Travis Couture from the 35th District, state representative and the Republican. So, by the way, you talk about statistics and data. So DCYF, have they released the statistics? I know they're supposed to put them out all the time. how many kids in foster care, how many kids have died, how many kids are in the hospital. Are they giving you the new details, the new data, the stats, or have you not seen them in a couple of years? Do you know where they are with this stuff?
That 200% increase I told you near the beginning was newer data within the last week or so,
Okay.
Week and a half or so. But that was kind of delivered to legislators only. But frankly, I don't give a damn who it's delivered to. We're talking about kids dying here.
Yes.
I'm not trying to cover anything up. This state needs to be far more accountable and transparent. And at the end of the day, the numbers keep going up. And I've heard that the fatalities were increasing so much they're having a hard time keeping up with the fatality reports and the numbers. But actually, technically, and I'm going to try to change this next session as well, there's nothing in state law that requires them to produce these fatality numbers and these fatality and near fatality reports. So technically, they're within the bounds of the law not to do so, but obviously it just shows that they're covering something up. And I mean, let's just say with DCYF, it's not just child welfare in this, it's everything. It's juvenile justice they control. That's a complete mess. The child care in our state is one of the most expensive in the country. They control that as well. I mean, literally, it's like the reverse Midas touch. Everything they touch turns to crap.
And here's another, Travis, here's another one that shocks the conscience of the court. So the Pediatric Interim Care Center, which has been doing this thing for 34 years, they have a staff that's on there 24 hours a day. The ratio is 1 to 3, one baby or three babies to one person. These are drug addicted kids that go there. They get special attention. They get rocked and held and cared for and spoken to. It costs about 10 to 20% of what it would cost if the kid was at, Mary Bridge or Children's Hospital. And they had a budget about $700,000. The legislators would pick up that. They would then, the other half would be raised by donations. They have never paid for formula, never paid for diapers, never paid for baby powder or baby clothing. It's all donated. So they got $700,000. Then that got struck down to $100,000. And then Bob Ferguson, who cares desperately about every kid, struck it to zero. So they have no funding now. They can't get any contracts. Nothing. They say they have enough money to survive for another year, but they can't get any contracts now from the state of Washington. So this organization that has been directly involved in giving amazing care to drug addicted babies, they're going to be, out of business and the money goes, or at least these babies will go somewhere else that'll cost, 10 times the amount that would be costing there at the PICC in Kent. When you saw that, what was your reaction to that, Travis?
Yeah, the PIC Center in Kent, and also there's another one, Maddie's Place in Spokane, which was also defunded. And they do incredible work. I mean, these babies are sometimes addicted to more than just one drug, maybe sometimes 5 drugs. I'll just tell you quickly that, one of my caucus members, Representative Chris Corey, him and his wife have recently taken a baby that was addicted to 5 different drugs into their care. And they've had to go, I mean, this is a state legislator. He's having to go fight the courts and DCYF. And so they don't send this precious little baby back to the drug abusing mom. And so DCYF canceled the contract with the PIC Center, which is probably bigger than the money, right? Because we fought for full funding for the PIC Center. But instead, they were giving money to illegal immigrant health care at hundreds of millions of dollars and a whole bunch of other things. I like to say in this budget, in this session, the only winners were politicians, bureaucrats and their pay increases and criminals. And that's absolutely the case. But the DCYF cancels the contract because you know what they want to do? They want to, in a very expensive and traumatic way, care for these babies in the hospital environment, which our hospitals are at just like the ribbon's edge of collapse in Washington State, over $2 billion in the hole. And when the hospital can't take them anymore, you know where they send them? Back with drug abusing mom and dad to go die. And so that kind of stuff pisses me off. The PIC Center for a long time has done some great work. Maddie's Place in Spokane, cutting edge, fantastic work, not just with the baby itself, but also with the parents to try to get them to the right spot in their life where they can recover and be clean and sober. And in this state, you can't even say, with the Democrat majority, you can't even say the words clean and sober anymore. They think that's some kind of pejorative or something. And it's like, where have we come? I mean, I grew up in in a Midwest town where, in a time where meth was becoming big. And I've seen people in my family and others just lives destroyed because of hard drugs like meth. And the fentanyl is 100 times more powerful than that. And now you see tranq with people's flesh being eaten off the bones. And so I don't understand why Democrats want to remove kids from expensive traumatic hospital environments. But then if they're a drug addicted baby, no, we'll keep them in that hospital environment until we send them back with the mom. And hopefully we'll give them a lockbox to lock up their fentanyl with.
Well, as Senator Roger Goodman said in an interview a couple of months ago that, we shouldn't criminalize the behavior of drug dealers and shouldn't judge them.
I mean, they're dealing death. I mean, it's like he would not say the same thing if they were dealing guns.
I'm sorry, let me correct. It was drug addicts. People that are addicted to drugs, we shouldn't judge them, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, okay. So in my bill, House Bill 1092, which is, I believe, the fix to this Keeping Families Together Act I'm working on bipartisan support with, it recognizes two things. Separate the child for their safety immediately, and makes a host of fixes in order to do that. But then it recognizes that we should be sending and getting the parents clean and sober, send them to treatment, but you don't get your kids back unless you can prove that you are clean and sober. That's total common sense, but it doesn't go all the way backwards to the fears of many, like the 1980s full-on war on drugs, where we're just, taking that drug-addicted parent and throwing them in a prison cell. I think there's a middle ground that can be done in a blue state like this, where it's like, hey, we need to protect the child for their safety, remove them, and then we try to get the parent the help that they need and rebuild and fix their life and save their life, frankly. And when they can prove that they're clean and sober, which some can and some can't, then maybe they can petition to have their kids back when that's appropriate.
Yeah.
And I just think that's the way most states in our country operate a lot more successfully. It's never perfect. Foster care is never perfect, but it's a lot better than being dead.
Well, I have to say this, the final comment on it, Travis Couture from the 35th, is that the state of Washington knows how to raise and care for kids better than parents. I think they've proven that over and over and over again. So this will continue unless you guys, the good guys, push back on this. And as horrible as the name is, the dead baby bill, people start to realize that it's not flippant. It is the truth. We're losing little babies because the state of Washington thinks they know better than what common sense would dictate. Travis Couture, thanks for spending some time with us. We appreciate it.